The Justice Department has finally released some of the highly anticipated Epstein files. More than 300,000 pages of documents related to the late convicted offender were made public today. They include photos, flight logs, grand jury testimony, and a lot of heavy redactions.
It's everywhere, and I think for the first time, we are truly seeing evil reveal itself. Yep. You know, it's all been living in the shadows, right? It's all been living in the shadows for this whole time. None of us knew the depths of depravity that were going on, the amounts and levels of cover-up. Yep. But it's all coming out. Whether they like it or not, it's going to have to change.
The Justice Department declared in July that the Epstein investigation was finished. No client list, no new charges, no additional documents to release. But that claim runs into a serious contradiction. Around the same time, a woman identified as Marina Lacerda came forward publicly for the first time. She is known as Minor Victim 1 from the 2019 case, the same witness whose testimony helped bring Epstein into federal court, according to her.
Great, Mike. Thanks for having me. So what we're seeing is apparently not everything. We've got indications from the Department of Justice that there are things that are going to be withheld, at least, or handed out at a later date. Now, the law in this case that was passed by Congress and signed by President Trump required that all the Epstein files be released by midnight tonight, Friday, December 19th.
Crucial files still exist and are being withheld, including information that could expose others involved in her abuse. So on one side, authorities insist there is nothing left to uncover. On the other, a key victim says the truth remains hidden. That does not sound like closure. It sounds like a direct conflict. If you step back, the contradiction only deepens. Earlier this year, Attorney General Pam Bondi said on Fox News that an Epstein client list was literally on her desk awaiting review, claiming it existed and was being examined under direction from Donald Trump. But just a few months later, the United States Department of Justice and Federal Bureau of Investigation released a joint memo stating the exact opposite, that no such list had ever been found and no further disclosures were necessary. Both claims cannot stand at the same time, which leaves a serious gap in credibility somewhere along the line. The timeline makes it even more questionable. In late 2025, Congress overwhelmingly passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act, requiring the release of all unclassified Epstein-related records within 30 days, setting a December deadline. That deadline came and went without full compliance. Officials admitted the release was incomplete and vaguely promised more, but without any clear schedule, with no enforcement mechanism in the law. The requirement effectively became optional, allowing delays without consequence. Then comes the contrast in global response. While U.S. authorities signal closure, no more charges, no further action, developments abroad appear to move in the opposite direction. Prince Andrew faced legal scrutiny tied to allegations of misconduct involving Epstein and investigations.
He knows what happened. I know what happened. And there's only one of us telling the truth, and I know that's me.
That truth, as Virginia Giuffre tells it in her first interview on British soil, is that she was forced to have with Prince Andrew when she was 17 years old.
Reportedly expanded in parts of Europe, including Norway, where officials examine connections involving high-level figures and their families. The result is a striking divide. International inquiries continuing to probe deeper, while the U.S. position frames the matter as resolved. That is not a consistent outcome. It is a sharp disconnect in how the case is being handled. When someone actually tries to reveal what may be inside those files, the response can become just as controversial as the claims themselves. Take Corey Feldman. He invested over $1 million of his own money into his documentary My Truth, The Assault of Two Coreys, where he publicly identified individuals he accused of abuse, including people who had already been convicted of crimes. But the rollout of that film was chaotic. The online premiere reportedly failed within minutes, leaving viewers unable to watch it at a critical moment. Whether that was due to technical failure or something more deliberate was never clearly established, which only added to suspicion around it. Beyond that, Feldman has repeatedly claimed he faced threats to his safety and ultimately chose to leave the United States for a period because he did not feel secure. His history makes the situation more complex. Over the years, he has spoken out about abuse in Hollywood long, before some major scandals became public, including allegations connected to figures like Harvey Weinstein and issues within children's television networks later highlighted in projects like Quiet on Set. At the time, many dismissed him or questioned his credibility, and he faced public criticism, even from prominent figures like Barbara Walters.
Heels of the Harvey Weinstein scandal, Corey Feldman is on a mission, as he describes it, to clean up Hollywood. And it's taking on new meaning given those new allegations against Kevin Spacey that we talked about a little earlier.
Who challenged his statements on air. What makes this situation stand out is a tension between perception and hindsight. Some of the broader issues he raised years ago did later gain mainstream attention, which has led people to re-examine how his warnings were treated. Still, it is important to separate verified facts from claims that remain unproven. Patterns can appear meaningful, but they do not automatically confirm every conclusion. In the end, the real issue is not just about one victim's credibility. It is about how institutions, media, and the public respond when allegations surface early before there is widespread acknowledgement or evidence. The most unsettling part of the story is not the controversy around Corey Feldman or any technical failures. It is the voice of a survivor, a woman identified as Marina Lacerda, known in court records as Minor Victim 1, in the 2019 case against Jeffrey Epstein, has now spoken publicly. She says she was just 14 when she first encountered him in New York, drawn in by the promise of easy money, only for it to turn into years of abuse. Her account is not just personal. It played a key role in building the federal case that ultimately led to Epstein's arrest. What makes her story even more troubling is the timeline. Investigators first approached her back in 2008, when she was willing to testify, but that process was halted after Epstein secured a controversial legal deal. More than a decade later, authorities returned, using her testimony to strengthen the case that finally moved forward. Now, after all of that, she is asking for something basic: transparency. In an interview with ABC News, she called for the release of the remaining files, saying she wants access to information tied to her own case so she can begin to process what happened. She has even taken her appeal directly to lawmakers in Washington.
Does this conclusion from the FBI based on these communications, does this surprise you that there's no evidence that anybody else had been abusing girls, that Epstein hadn't trafficked any of these victims to anybody else?
Well, I think we should start by talking about this as an investigation, right? And to understand what has come out, to think about it through the lens of an investigation by the government.
Aligning with efforts tied to the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which is designed to force disclosure of unclassified records. The most disturbing allegation tied to this stage is how information has been handled. Reports suggest that redactions may have been applied in ways that go beyond protecting victims, potentially shielding individuals in positions of power as well. If true, that would contradict the intent of the law, which was specifically meant to protect survivors while increasing accountability. At its core, this is no longer just about one case or one individual. It raises a deeper question about whether systems meant to deliver justice are fully honoring that responsibility when survivors themselves are still asking for answers. If you take a step back and look at the full picture, the contradictions are hard to ignore. The United States Department of Justice insists there is no client